Okay, in this video I'm just going to give you a quick overview of Illustrator. Illustrator is very similar to Photoshop. It's from one of the Adobe suites. However, Photoshop works with pixel-based images, whereas Illustrator works with vector images. So, just like Photoshop, we've got all of our tools at the top. So we've got our menus at the top. We've got our tools down the left-hand side, so select, text tool, and so on. And down the right-hand side, we've got things like our colour swatches and our layers. Illustrator, just like Photoshop, works with layers. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new canvas to start with, so File, New. And then we can set up the size of our canvas. So you see here it says Size Custom. Let's just set up that one up to A4. Units, we can change the units, change those to millimeters. It might make us a little bit easier to understand what's going on instead of points. And we can make any changes we want here. Once we're happy, click OK. And that creates our canvas. Now, a few things to think about with Illustrator, which is slightly different from Photoshop, is that when we bring in an image, so say I'm just going to grab an image, one of these ones we've seen before, and this one here, I'm going to pick out that images from my files, drag it into Illustrator. Now what you'll notice here is I brought in my image, and along the top it says it's a linked file. Now the way Illustrator works, and to save file sizes, is that it links the file back to that place where we found in our documents here, and this is just brought in a link of the file. That means that if you save this Illustrator file in a different place and you open it up and the folder is not in the same place, or that image is not in the same place in that folder, it will open up with no image there. Okay. So what we can do is we can click on that image, and along the top here we've got this option to embed it. If we embed that image, that will now be part of our Illustrator document, and it won't be linked anymore. It will obviously increase the file size. If we keep putting more and more images in, we're going to get quite a big file size. Okay, so I can pick up my image, I can drag it around nice and easily. If I want to crop an image in Illustrator, what I need to do is I need to go to my rectangle tool, my shape tool, and draw over the top of it the area that I want. So I want to crop this image down to that size. Let's just turn the colour up so you can see what it is. So we can see there's my image in the background. Let's just zoom in a bit so you can see what's happening. There's my image in the background, and this is my crop tool. Okay, so the rectangle is above the image. Control click them. Oops. Click them both using Shift to select both of them. Right click, and we can apply a clipping mask. By applying the clipping mask, it means that we've preserved the editability of both the image underneath and also our rectangle that's clipping it. So to show you what I mean, if I go into my layers down here and expand the layer 1 and expand clipping mask, you'll see I've got two options here. I've got two items. I've got my clipping mask. If I click on that blue, I can move that around. So if I click on that one and not the image, you see I can change that clipping mask. So I can just isolate a little bit of the image if I want to, or a bit more. If, however, I just click on the image below, now you'll see that if I move the image around, I'm moving that around, and that's just like a little window. That clipping mask is a window, and we can only see what is through that window. Yeah. So I can move all my images around and create these clipping masks to crop them. Now Illustrator is really good with text. So if I'm putting my image here, I can get a text box, drag out my text box, and enter in whatever text I want. Click enter. To change my text styles and everything, just the same as in Word, select your text. At the top here we've got our different fonts, and we've got regular size and paragraph settings. Okay. So we can edit that around, change that and move that around. What you'll notice with Illustrator, when we start dragging things around, is it likes to try and snap to. So you see here, this piece of text is now going on the edge of that boundary here, and we're getting that little green line coming up. If we allow that to snap to that green line, that will mean that this edge and that text are in line with each other. We can also select both of them using Shift, holding down Shift to select both of them, and we get these arrangement tools that come up on the top here. So we could select the tops to be the same, or we could select the right hand side to be the same, or the bottoms. Okay, so we can move it all around with these tools here. Click off, click back on that text to click and move it around. So we can move that around anywhere we like, and Illustrator is really good at that. So, if we want to create a box, a rectangle, or anything like that, we've got this rectangle tool here. If we click and hold on that rectangle tool, we can see we've got other shapes, so I can go for a rounded rectangle, an ellipse, a polygon, etc. If I just go for a normal rectangle, coming up in black, you'll notice up here is my colour, and this one here is what's known as a stroke. And the stroke is effectively the border that this path has. So everything is made in paths, and everything has a colour and a border. I could set that colour to whatever I wanted it to be, yellow, blue, and I could again set my stroke, I could set that to different colours as well. You'll see here next to my stroke, I've got my stroke weight, which at the moment is set at 1 point. I can increase that or decrease that. I want to move that around. Okay. I can do the same with a ellipse for a circle. If I want to create a circle from an ellipse, hold down Shift, and that maintains that aspect ratio between the two, so I can get a circle. Okay, so one of the most useful tools on Illustrator is this pen tool. And it's a little bit tricky to get used to drawing with, but I'd recommend everybody has a play with it because it's really commonly used. So the pen tool creates a line, a vector line, which we can control using these control points and these drag handles. So what I do is I click where I want it to be and let go to place a line. If I want a straight line, I just click once. So here I'm going to click once, click once, click once, click once, click once for a straight line. If I want a curved line, I click and hold, I do not let go, my left mouse button, click and hold and drag my mouse around. You see I'm dragging now these drag handles. So I can click and drag that handle, let go when I'm happy. Click, drag, hold, don't let go, don't let go, move that around to where I want it to be, let go when I'm happy. It takes quite a little time to get used to drawing like this, but the pen tool is really useful and a really good feature of Illustrator. When we've created our shape, whatever shape that is, if we use this black move mouse button here, we can click on that shape and move it around anywhere we like. If we click on the white mouse button and click on our shape, it means we can actually modify individual points. So you see I'm clicking that point, modifying that point, modifying that point. We can also modify these drag handles, so I can click on the end of that handle, bring it in, bring it out, whatever, to modify that curve. Okay, so the white mouse, little mouse button at the top there, modifies the points, whereas the black mouse modifies the whole thing. So I can click on that, for example, click on that, and move that around. Another tool that we can use, let's move that up a bit. Another tool that we can use instead is the paintbrush tool if we want. And this, we can just draw with it with our mouse. When we let go, you'll see it will smooth off that curve and create it into our vector curve. If I click my white mouse and click on that, you'll see it's made up of lots of little points. I can click on any of those points. They still have our drag handles. I can still drag them around if I want to, and change the way that looks. Because it's a paintbrush, you'll see that it's actually a bit thick. It's actually quite thick. So I'm going to click on it again, and up my stroke here, I'm one stroke, but it's still quite thick. I could drop that down in that drop down menu. I could drop down to 0.5 or 0.25, But what you'll notice, because it's a brush, it's a little bit like a calligraphy brush, and so you can see here that we get thicker bits and thinner bits and thicker bits and thinner bits as we go along that line. If we want to have the freedom of the brush and not have to use the pen tool, we can use the pencil tool. We can draw our shape along like that. Let's just bump that up size wise, and you can see here we've got that consistent line now that we don't have with the brush. These are really good, especially if we've got a Wacom tablet and we're actually sketching straight on the screen. These are really useful tools to use. However, I'd recommend everybody has a play with the traditional pen tool, as this is really commonly used, and with a mouse this is probably the most efficient way of drawing our shape. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to save it. This is the last bit here. So to save our file, once we've finished it, go File, Save, select where we want it to be saved and give it a name and click Save. There we go, that's an introduction to Illustrator.